Okay, so what we're going to learn today is perspective drawing. So there's a lot of different types of perspective drawings. There's 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, even 4 point. It gets pretty advanced. For this lesson, I'm going to do a 1 point perspective, and I'm going to throw out some key terms that we're going to be using throughout the lesson as well, like horizon line, parallel line, perpendicular line, a vanishing point is going to be another one. So there's going to be a lot of different terms, or not a lot, but there's going to be a few terms that we're going to repeat over and over and over again throughout this lesson. Make sure that we understand exactly what we're doing when we go to make a decision on where a line goes. Okay. So what we have to start with first, well, supplies is where we need to start. So you need to make sure that you have a ruler. I like the metal rulers. You've got two different options with this. You've got the cork back, so it should be pretty soft on your paper if you've got to move things around, but that still elevates the ruler off the paper as well, slightly because of that cork on the back. Or you can turn it, if it's nice and free of any nicks and dings, you can turn it over, and this is as flat as you can get with a ruler. So I like to use these. I'll use it both ways depending on the line that I'm making and the direction that I'm going. So nice metal ruler. Today, for all intents and purposes, I'm going to use a basic number 2 pencil, which happens to be an HB. This is something new. When I was younger, they never had the HB on here. It just said number 2. This is not a fancy pencil. This is just a basic number 2 pencil. We could use our nice pencils, our nice drawing pencils like these that you can either get from Blick. We don't need to use these, especially if we're just learning how to think in 1 point perspective. So we're going to do some basic stuff today, so we don't need to get fancy with different kinds of pencils like the HB and the 2H and 4H and 4Bs, all that kind of stuff. We don't need to get into that. So today we just need a basic number 2 pencil, we need an open mind, and we need our ruler. Okay, so to start, I like to put my paper in landscape. So this is landscape, and then this is portrait. Okay, so we're gonna go in landscape this time. And I'm gonna take my ruler, I'm gonna divide it almost in half. I'm not gonna measure it to being exactly in half, but I'm gonna try and get this as close to a half as possible without measuring. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a parallel line, and it's parallel to the top of my paper. Okay, I compare a lot of my lines to the edges of my papers depending on what I'm doing at what time. That's what I like to do to make sure that things are going straight in the right direction, the best to my ability. Okay, so I'm going to make a horizontal line, which happens to function as our horizon line. Horizon, horizontal. I'm going to draw a little darker so that way you can see it better. But typically how I ask you to draw is nice and light, and I am going to ask you to draw lightly. So draw a nice light line, because if you need to erase it, I want it to go away. You don't want to have a ghosted image of wherever you drew this line if you're trying to make something that covers up that line. All right, so a nice thin basic line, that's our horizon line. Okay, your horizon line is anywhere that you are and your eyes are looking at. So if you're in a basement and you're looking straight, that's your horizon line. If you're on Mount Rainier and the summit and you're looking out, that's your horizon line. So your horizon line is not a fixed position. It is wherever your eyes are, looking straight out. Not looking down, not looking up, looking straight out. That's your horizon line. So when you look at this line, you have to imagine that your head is roughly, and I don't want you drawing this, but your head is roughly right here, and your eyes are right in the middle of your head. And that's in a whole nother lesson, but you are looking out at the horizon line. So that is where your eyes are. Okay, so this whole time, this has nothing to do with my eyes, your eyes. It has to do with whoever's drawing, their eyes. And in my case, I'm drawing, so my horizon line is where I'm looking, okay? And your horizon line is where you're looking. So what we're gonna do today is we're just gonna do 1 point perspective. So we have our horizon line, now we need to have a vanishing point. I'm gonna make mine kind of big. I want you to make yours kind of small because we don't want it to be very noticeable. So as you can see, there is your vanishing point right there. This is your horizon line, and we can begin. So on the perspective aspect of this, typically how you start off is you make a town. How I was taught was you make a street. Well, I'm not going to start like that today. That'll be another lesson I'll do. We can get into buildings and things like that. But this is going to be a basic intro into 1 point perspective, and we're going to explore just shapes, how shapes will look under the horizon line, on the horizon line, or above the horizon line. So I'm going to make a basic shape of a square, okay, and I'm going to make this square underneath my horizon line on the right side, okay. So I'm going to go underneath. I'm just going to make it, say, 1 inch, and you don't have to measure it. Actually, I'm going to go 2 inches, and there is a vertical line. Okay, so I've got a vertical line 2 inches wide, or 2 inches long. I'm going to try and make sure that I am lined up. What I'm doing right now is it worked out where my line stopped, where I can actually put my ruler right on the very bottom of my paper, and I can get a nice parallel straight line. I am parallel to the bottom of the paper, and I am parallel to my horizon line. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to try and make sure this is parallel and it's not tilted at all, the best I can. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We just need to get a general square. Okay, so we've got 3 sides. Now I'm going to make another vertical. We'll see how I did matching this up. Actually, I did pretty good. So I've got this right there. And again, I'm going to draw darker than what I want you to draw. I want you to draw lighter. I don't want you to draw as dark as me because I'm just doing it so you can see what I'm drawing. So we've got a shape, right? But right now it's flat and it's just a square. So we need to turn it into a 3-dimensional object. So we need to make some more lines. So when we talk lines, it's a whole nother lesson for another video. But in life, there are no lines. What I tell my students are that lines only exist in cartoons and tattoos. Okay, so in life, nobody walks around with a line around them. No building technically has a line. There are lines formed by the separation of objects. Okay, so there's the illusion of lines. So what we're doing here is all illusion of lines. But the way we're going to manipulate these lines in order to make it look, or make something look 3-dimensional. Okay, the task here is to make something look 3-dimensional, not necessarily realistic, but we want to make something look 3-dimensional. Okay, so to do that, for this flat square object, is I'm going to line up my ruler with my vanishing point, and then I'm going to take it to an edge. Okay, so I've got the edge of my square here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line. And it honestly doesn't matter how long the line is, but for this exercise, I don't want you to make it super long. I just want you to make it long enough so you can see it, and that's it. Okay, so we don't need to get really fancy with it. You're going to start to see how this comes together, but I'm going to go to all 4 corners and we're going to see what kind of a line we can make. Okay, so again, we're aiming at our vanishing point. We are on our corner, and I'm just going to draw a line. Now I want to make sure I draw it roughly the same length as the other one, but if it falls short or goes over, it's not a big deal. Okay, don't erase anything yet. I can already tell that I drew it longer, and we're going to fix that anyways. No big deal. Again, line up your vanishing point to your other corner. This is my 3rd corner now. Sometimes it helps to put your pencil on the vanishing point, and then you can rotate your ruler back and forth like this. And that vanishing point, it'll always be aimed at the vanishing point, and then I can get it to my corner. and I can go back and draw the line that I want to draw. Okay, so I drew a line. Again, I've got 3 lines going on, and right now we still need to connect some things, but I'm going to go to that last corner and I'm going to ask a question. Do you think if I'm trying to draw a solid cube that I should draw a line from this last corner? Should I draw a line right here if I want it to be a solid? The answer is no, because I'm not trying to make a transparent cube. I'm trying to make a solid shape that is not see-through. Okay, this is not a glass cube. This is, let's say it's a cement cube. So I don't want to draw a line from this one. What I need to do now is I need to make some parallel lines. I need to connect these 2 lines that I did that went to my vanishing point, and you can choose to go right at the edge of one of them. We need to try and make sure that they're as parallel as possible to this or the horizon line. Since I can see this, I like to be on this side of my ruler. I don't like to draw lines on here because then I can't see what I'm doing. I like to draw on this side, and I'm going to try and make it parallel to here. Best that I can, not perfect. And I'm just going to connect those 2 lines. Okay? So we're almost done, only one more line, and we will have a 3-dimensional cube. Again, we're going to make a vertical line, but now I'm going to take it from this edge that I just created, and I'm going to go parallel to this edge of one of our first lines. Actually was our first line, and I'm just going to connect. Done. Got a cube, right? I'm going to erase this line. It's going to ghost a little bit because I drew dark, which I don't like doing, but for this exercise, so you guys can see that at what I'm drawing, I have to do that. But trust me, it's a huge pet peeve to draw dark lines because they never go away. All right, so we've got a box, right? So are we looking down on this, or are we looking up at it? Right, we're looking down at it because our eyes are right here, and we have to look down so we can see the top of this box. We can't see underneath this box, and we're standing right in the middle. So right now, really, my circle is right here, my head is here. I'm able to look down, and I'm able to look to the side. Okay, but my body is in front, so technically I'm right here. I'm not on the paper or way down here at the vanishing point. I'm off the paper looking down, and I can look down and I can look to the side. Okay, so that's underneath the horizon line. Now let's go above the horizon line, and above the horizon line I'm going to do the same thing. What I'm going to do is make a box. I'm going to make it a little bit shorter. I'm going to make an 1.5 inch box. Again, I'm making a vertical but parallel line, parallel to the edge. But I'm also making a perpendicular line to the horizon line, right? Again, another parallel line, 1.5 inches. Again, measuring is not a big deal, but for this exercise, I'm going to measure just to try and make sure that I have as even of a box as possible. Again, I can't see the horizon. I want to see the top of the paper, so what I'm going to do is turn this over, and this is, I don't like to draw this way, but I want to see if I'm parallel to the top edge of my paper, right? So now I'm going to draw a line right there. I think I went up a little bit. We'll find out in a second. So if I want an 1.5 inches, actually I did pretty good. So okay, so I've got an 1.5 inch box. So my 1.5 inch box, now I need to make it look dimensional, right? It looks kind of weird now that I've got this nice shape, 3-dimensional looking cube, and I've got this flat square up here. So we need to make this dimensional, but this time, let's make it longer. This time, let's go to our vanishing point. Remember, always to the vanishing point when you're making these lines to make it look dimensional. I'm going to stretch this out a little further, make it look a little longer. All right, now I'm going to go over to my outer edge. My outer edge, I'm going to take, whoops, I didn't mean to go that far. See, accidents happen. It's okay. Erase it, and then move forward. All right, now I'm going to go to this line because it looks kind of silly right now. And I don't like to dig underneath. See how my pencil's kind of at an angle? I like to draw my lines more up and down so I'm not underneath my ruler, because then you'll lose your line and you're not drawing an accurate line. So you want to have your pencil up as much as possible. Draw another line there. Now we're almost done, right? So now we got to go back to our perpendicular or parallel lines. I want to make a parallel line to this, connecting these two together. Looks pretty parallel. I'm going to go ahead and close that off. And then I've got to do another parallel line, either parallel to this or parallel to my horizon line, which I'm going to choose my horizon line. At the bottom here, cut over, bam. So now I just need to clean this up a little bit. Okay, so we've got two shapes, 1 point perspective. We've got a vanishing point. We are underneath, or we are on top of this box. So we're looking down on top of it and on the side. This one we are on the side, but we are looking up at it. So now we see the bottom. We cannot see the top of this one because we are underneath of this one. Our eyes are here, our head is here. So we can see up and over to it, okay? Now let's make another object over on the horizon line. So I'm gonna put my 7 for whatever reason. I'm just choosing 7, whatever number you want, if you even want to put a number. I'm gonna do a 2-inch box right here in between. I'm gonna make a perpendicular line, and I'm gonna try and make it 2 by 2, and I'm going to make it as parallel as possible. So I'm just doing another square right now. And you notice I don't turn my paper a whole lot, if at all. I prefer to keep my paper flat and move my ruler and my pencil around that space. Okay. Make sure I got my parallel line here. Okay, so you notice the reason I told you in the beginning, make a nice light line, because this horizon line needs to go away. It'll get confusing, and we're not drawing transparent cubes. Okay, so we're just drawing solid cubes. And in this case, I want you to test all your corners. You've got 4 corners. I want you to test them all and see if they go to the horizon line or go to the vanishing point. So I'm going to test the first one. And it looks like I'm pretty successful. I should be going towards the vanishing point. I'm gonna go about there. And the bottom one, bottom corner, aim. Whoops. Okay. And then I'm gonna check my other sides just to make sure, but I already know that I can't do this. So if I draw this line, I'm going to have a transparent box again, or for the first time. I don't want to do that. I want to keep it solid, so I'm not making anything transparent. Now I'm just going to make my vertical parallel line to close this box off. And close and erase my horizon line inside my cube. Okay, and redraw, I erased a little too much, redraw that. Okay, so I've got 3 cubes and I've got them in 3 different locations. This is 1 point perspective, the most basic 1 point perspective we can do. So this is an intro into the different types of lines. So we've got a basic square shape using horizontal parallel lines with vertical parallel lines, which they're parallel to each other, but this is perpendicular to this line, and vice versa down here. We've got our lines going from our corners, our 3 corners, because we can't do this one if we don't want to make it, if we want to make it solid, we don't use this corner to make a line. We can if we want to make it transparent. And these lines are going towards our vanishing point. All these lines, if they're not going straight up and down or straight side to side, then they are going to a vanishing point. You have one vanishing point, that's why it is 1 point perspective, okay? So this is the most basic version of 1 point perspective I can show you. The next one will be making the classic town, the street with some buildings, and we can get into a little more detail on that. I am going to do one more thing on this and see how it goes. I want you to give it a shot first before you write it off. I want you to try this. So what I want you to do is make a square inside one of your squares. Doesn't matter how big it is. What I'm going to do is just pick a spot. I'm going to do mine roughly about 1 inch wide. So I'm going to make an inch line there. I'm going to make an inch line there, and then it's going to be a little bit thin. It's going to be thinner than 1 inch. I'm going to make sure it's still parallel. Okay, and then make sure this is parallel to this line. Okay. I'm going to compare it to this side because I want to make sure this is straight. Okay, so I've got a square, right? So it kind of looks like I posted a piece of paper on the side of this concrete cube, right? So what we're going to do is, this is part of that illusion, what you can do with the lines. We're going to turn this little sheet of paper into a hole. Okay, so we're going to rip through this concrete cube and we're going to make it semi-hollow. Okay, and the reason I say semi because this is a really thick cube. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this outer edge, the one that we didn't use here, we're going to use this one, aim it to our vanishing point, and we're going to draw a line. Already you start to see that something's happening. What we need to do is go to this back line that we created a while ago towards our vanishing point, and we need to bring that into the inside of the cube somehow. So since I'm lined up there, I'm parallel to this line is parallel to here, I'm going to draw a little line in here. Okay, what I need to do is finish this line and draw it further, this first line that I did inside. So I'm going to finish this. I'll get it. I should have done this right the first time. Close that off. Okay. And then I need to draw a parallel line to the top of this, right? So I'm parallel to that. You just put a hole inside your concrete box. Now you can walk through or look through your concrete box, right? So you just created a three-dimensional image, and then you went even further and you created a hole inside that three-dimensional image. So you could do that with all three of these if you like. You can make another square here, use the outer lines, because on this one, see how we use these two lines, right? I might as well do this one. I'm going to do this with you real quick. I'm going to make roughly 1 inch, around 1 inch. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is make my parallel line, correct? Parallel. And I'm going to go parallel to the other side, just to make sure I'm on point. Okay, finish that line off and then erase. Okay. So again, we've got a piece of paper on the side of a cube. And instead of, see how these lines out of this square, we took these two edges to our vanishing point, not these two. And in this case, we're not taking these two, we're taking these two to our vanishing point. So we're going to aim at our vanishing point. And since this line is way over here, this point, we're going to go from edge to edge. Just like that. And we're not going to be able, because I made this longer, and maybe you didn't make it longer, and maybe it doesn't function this way for you. But now I can't see all the way through. I can't see the other side because this point would have to be over here somewhere in order for that to be closed off. For me to bring another line down like we did over here, this doesn't function that way. So I still have a hole in this. I just can't see all the way through it. And that's fine. It still serves the same purpose and functions the same way. And you can do the same with this. We could even do a hole going up. Okay, we're not going to do that on this one. I want to keep it fairly basic. This was probably even a little more advanced depending on where you're at knowledge-wise and how you were understanding the first portion of this. So again, recap, we've got a horizon line, a horizontal horizon line. We have a vanishing point. We turned a flat square image into a dimensional image. And we are above the vanishing, or above the horizon line here, below the horizon line here, and we are on the horizon line here. Our head technically is right here. And that's why we're seeing what we're seeing. So our eyes are looking this way, our eyes are looking up at this, and our eyes are looking down at this, okay? So we've got different things happening, we've got different views of things happening, and you can put objects all over the place here. If we were to put a circle here, the only thing we'd be doing is we could turn it into a cylinder, which maybe I'll do because I feel like it right now. Because if I put a circle here and I just wanted it to be a sphere, then it's just going to be shading, right? So it's just going to be a shaded sphere. There's nothing else. There's no lines that have anything to do with the perspective. It's just a shaded circle that makes it dimensional and makes it turns it into a sphere. So in this case, I want to make a cylinder. So I'm going to have that looking straight at me roughly. I'm going to go right to an edge from the vanishing point. I'm going to go that way, keep it on the vanishing point, go to my other edge, and go out. We'll see what we got. And now what we need to do is make this rounded line. And that's going to finish off our tube. And then the shading, if this wasn't closed, if this was open, we'd have to shade inside. So right now this is a closed tube, right? It's a closed cylinder. But what we can do to make it look even more dimensional, if we wanted to make it look hollow, like a paper towel cardboard holder, we would have to shade in here. So we would be shading towards our vanishing point, right? But we'd have to figure out where the dark area is and where the light is. So where's the light hitting? Where's our light source? And that's another thing. Once we get, it's what we have to choose. So where's our sun, right? Where's our sun in all this? Or where's our light bulb at? Okay, normally when you choose and you're trying to draw something three-dimensionally, you have to choose where the light source is. So usually in my case, I like, for whatever reason, I always go the upper left-hand corner. So I'll even just draw kind of a sun here so I don't forget, and just do that. Just a basic little sun with three little things, rays coming down, and it tells me this is where the light's coming from, right? So to make this look more dimensional, I'd have to shade this, and I'm gonna do this quickly. I would want you to take your time if you really want this to look nice and dimensional, nice and neat, but just putting even some hatching on here real quick, just fading it up a little bit and making this look dimensional, okay? So the sunlight is hitting on this side, that's why it's bright, and then this side darker, right? And this is where you would get into your fancy pencils and you know, use some 2B, 4B, try and make this look really nice and neat and have that value fade up really nice. But I'm rushing it right now. And then on this side, since the sun's coming over here, it's not hitting here as much. So I'm going to shade inside on the upper portion, right? And then the outer edge is being exposed to the sunlight a little bit from the inside out. So again, we want to get the darkest areas and fade off to the lighter areas, okay? And I'm trying to keep my strokes, my pencil strokes, my shading going towards the vanishing point, since that's how I'm shading, since that's the way the tube is going, that's the way my shading should go as well. And I'm just trying to blend this in here. I might get a little heavy, but it's okay. Again, if I was using the fancy stuff, I'd have my blending stub out and I'd start blending it up a little bit. I can't get as dark as I want to get, and I'm not a dark artist anyways. I tend to draw light. It was always a difficult task for me to make something as dark as it needs to be. And it's something I've worked on all my life, and it's coming around, but it's still a work in progress. And I always tell my students to draw light at first. You never want to go straight dark right off the bat, because it's harder to come back from it. It's easier to make something darker if you need to make it darker later on. So again, this is kind of a rough example, but you understand what's happening. Things are starting to look dimensional, and you're on the right path to making something look like it's in perspective, right? So I'm nitpicking this right now for whatever reason, and just wanted to clean that up a little. So 1 point perspective, and shading on the boxes as well. This is something that can be important if it is important. Your light source is here. Is this going to be light or dark? This is going to be light. This is going to be light or dark. This is going to be kind of dark, and this is going to be even darker. So this is going to have some value to it, because it's the underneath. Again, try and keep your strokes all going towards the vanishing point the best you can. It helps. And again, if we were doing this a really good exercise, we would be using the good pencils and the blending stubs, and we'd get rid of all those lines. And then this, you could go either way, side to side or up and down. And then this would be a shade darker. So maybe the bottom is maybe a 30%, 20%, and then the top, this section here maybe is a 50% or 60% grayscale, right? So again, I'm doing this super fast. Don't rush this like I am. Take your time. Practice the shading as well. We want to fill this in and make it look nice and neat. We don't want to ruin what we were doing with some junky shading, right? We want to take our time and make things look nice. For the purpose of just explaining what's happening, I'm rushing, okay? So I'm not trying to rush because that's what I do. I am just rushing just so you get a quick understanding of how things will function in perspective drawing, okay? And a good reason to have perspective drawing, to have it under your belt. For one thing, it will help you if you work on three-dimensional objects. So if you work with clay or sculptures of any sort, whether it be using cardboard or driftwood or actual marble that you're chiseling away, you need to be able to visualize things in the round. Your spatial awareness and how you picture things in the real world is important. So nothing is really flat, you know, except for paper and things like that. But if somebody says to to you and they said, what's the first thing you think of when somebody says tree? Well, some people will just think of a flat image of a tree. Some people will start to walk around that tree for whatever reason in their mind and look at the bark, look at the different branches, look at the leaves. Like, actually think of that object in the round and not just flat. If I have students just say, if I tell somebody, hey, draw me a tree, then usually what I get is this. I may get a little more root work, but this is a tree, right? It's not a tree, okay? So it is a representation of a tree, but this is not what I would visualize if somebody said, hey, my house is next to a lot of trees. I'm not going to picture a bunch of these things. I'm going to picture an actual tree, and I might even walk around that tree in my mind. So thinking of something all the way around like it's a three-dimensional object is very important. So being able to visualize and put things in perspective like this will help you visualize things all the way around, right? So if the next task is, or the next project is working with clay, then you can spin that clay and work on it from both sides, and you will know how things are going to look, because in your mind, you're visualizing what it's supposed to look like. If you have to make an animal, the animal's not flat unless it's like a halibut or something, but or some other kind of fish, but it's not flat. So we have to build it in the round. We have to picture it, take a flat two-dimensional object, because we don't have a tiger accessible. We have to take a flat two-dimensional picture of a tiger and turn it into a three-dimensional object out of clay. We've got to be able to walk around that tiger in our head. We have to be able to visualize it that way. So perspective drawing is one step closer to helping you get to that point. All right? And you can feel free to play around with the different shadows, shading on the inside, the outside of these boxes. You can put in some other shapes that you want to see if you can turn them into dimensional objects using one-point perspective. The next video that I'll do is I'll do another one-point perspective, but we'll focus on making a street with some buildings, okay, before we go into two-point perspective, okay? Thank you.